Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Chargers, we are definitely in an uncharted time in the history of our world. I wanted to share episodes this month that will make an impact in your business and life during this uncertain time. For a speaker, trainer, and podcast host, my work with organizations are suspended at this time. So I decided I wanted to do something to help the stress and negativity of our society is facing. So I decided to record a webinar called 10 Ways to Be Positive in This Uncertain Time. This free webinar with no opt-in required is available to you to view and share with your friends, family, and colleagues. To watch the webinar, go to bit.ly/Gary Wilbers-webinar Be Positive. The best place would be go to chargepodcast.com to find the link in our show notes at the very top of the page. This is a complimentary webinar to share 10 practices you can do to stay positive and how you can help others during this uncertain time. Each week this month, we will have a great guest lined up that will give you a different perspective on the current situation in our world today. Our first guest for April is Jonathan Slane with Rock the Recession. Jonathan shares some great information about what you need to do to come out of this challenging time. Jonathan shares with us it could be a long road, but the leaders that take action will see the reward. I personally don't believe we are going to see the depression that Jonathan shares on the podcast, but I do believe what you do each day will determine if you survive this time. Let's get to our podcast. Welcome back, Chargers. We're glad you came back again today for another great podcast. And I'm telling you, we found people that really are making a difference with this uncertain time in our society. So I want to share this with you because I think it's so practical right now. And as Chargers and business owners and entrepreneurs, you're going through a lot of different emotions. So you need to hear from experts in these areas. And today I've got Jonathan Slane. And Jonathan has spent the last Great Recession huddled in the fetal position on the floor in his office. He borrowed $250,000 from his mother-in-law to survive. Jonathan paid his mother-in-law back and is now a highly sought-after consultant. And yes, he's even still married. The savvy entrepreneurs are the ones making plans now and getting prepared and ready so they can be the buyers when an opportunity knocks. They're looking forward to purchasing failing companies and hiring top talent when others are caught unprepared by a recession. Jonathan understands not only how to prepare your business for the next major recession, but also how to turn it into a profitable opportunity. And what a practical time this is to have Jonathan on the podcast with this uncertain time that we're in right now. Jonathan, welcome to the Charge Podcast.
Dude, Gary, thanks for having me on. Let's rock.
Well, awesome. I can't wait to have you share because I know you've got a book. There's going to be a reason he said that, Rock, and we'll share that in just a minute. But if you would, before we get started, I talk about charge, and that's create habits around real goals every day. What habit do you think has led success in your life?
The big one for me is each day I try to wake up and eat the frog. So the idea here, and you may have seen the Eat the Frog book, but the idea, is so what is that one thing that I can get done each day that if I got that done, at least when I put my head on the pillow at night, I won't be like, what did I even accomplish today? So I have a couple of rules around it, Gary. One is that I always try to go to sleep thinking about what my frog is. I just know with neuroscience that my brain will work on it while I sleep, and often in the morning I wake up and I've got some ideas on how I can creatively solve whatever the problem, whatever frog I want to eat is. And then I try to get it, I go to the bathroom in the morning. I do check my email on my phone, But before I return emails, before I take phone calls, before the whirlwind of the day gets me, I try to just knock off that one thing that's bugging me that if I just got it done would move me forward. So pretty big into that.
Well, and that's a huge one. And I'm telling you, I hope you're hearing this, because entrepreneurs right now, with this time of the uncertainty of our economy, of our world, it is one of those times that you have to come in and you got to be prepared to do something. And that's the key. Otherwise, you can get swept up into the whirlwind, and then the day goes by and the week goes by and you're not doing anything to move your business forward. And we're going to really get into this because Jonathan's background is in this area. We talked about when the recession is coming. I hope it still doesn't come, but let's be honest, there's going to be changes in the world. There's changes in the economy right now. So with this economic downturn, how should businesses start to really respond, to be able to respond and react to it?
Yeah, Gary, I think that, the book, we've alluded to it, it's called Rock the Recession. I may have misnamed it though. I maybe should have called it Dodge the Depression. I really think that unfortunately we're going to have a pretty severe economic crisis in this country. I think at the end of March, that we'll be hearing that we've had 1/4 of GDP dropping, obviously just our gross domestic product dropping. I think at the end of June, we'll see 2/4 of it dropping, which will officially technically put us into a recession. I use the D word, depression. I don't use it lightly. The idea here, though, is that in the Great Recession, at the bottom of it, we saw GDP drop by close to 5%. I really think here we'll probably be seeing more like 20 to 25% as a drop. And I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope you're having me back on the show in 6 months, and I have to apologize profusely to the audience. But I do want the audience to be thinking that way, to be thinking through what does it look like for my business if we do indeed have that big of a drop off in the economy, and how am I going to pivot? So the first step is really to benchmark how ready you are for a recession. And when we did the research for the book and we talked to business owners that successfully grew through the Great Recession or the dot-com bubble before that, what they did that was different was they assessed their situation. That was their first step. They benchmarked their readiness. And at recession.com, which is my website. Yes, it really is my website. At recession.com, there's a free assessment. It's 20 questions. It takes 10 minutes. You'll get a score from 0 to 100. If you get a 0, that means you're not at all prepared for the coming recession, and you'll probably be looking at a bankruptcy. If you're 100, it means you're probably looking forward to the recession because you've got all your ducks in a row, and you're looking forward to all the opportunities that a recession can bring if you're prepared. So that's step one, is to assess where you're at.
What really helps here, I'd like, let's walk through those steps, because I think that can be really helpful here, because it's about getting businesses prepared. And the challenge they may have now, they may not have the time to prepare, but some of these steps they can put in place. Number one, taking your assessment, get a feel for where you're at, because then you're going to know what assessments do for anyone is tells you where you're at. So you have that marker that's there and that benchmark. So I think that's huge. What would be the next thing I could really kind of prepare with this economic downturn?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One would be that you need to be looking at the SBA emergency loan program to see if that's a fit for you. And it will be for almost the entire audience listening. And also we've got the CARES Act that's working its way through Congress while we're shooting this podcast, recording it. But that will probably be law by the time you're listening to this. And so I would be looking to apply to both of those programs, see which one of them is a better fit for you, and then move forward with that. The second thing, Gary, would be to have conversations with your banker about things like your line of credit. So maybe you've got a business line of credit, maybe you have a home equity line of credit. As a business owner, I'm recommending everybody draw on those lines of credit now. What we saw in the Great Recession is that as we got into the depths of it, the banks started to close down lines of credit. They started to close down the availability to take that away from business owners. And so if you're a business owner or leader and you're listening to this, move the money off the line of credit and into your checking or savings account. You have to read your loan documents. It may even make sense for you to move those funds to another bank completely, just depending on whether or not your bank could take funds out of your checking or savings account to repay your line of credit. But out of an abundance of caution, that's what I would be doing. So those are my two top tips right now for people listening to us.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys that we have to understand as entrepreneurs, as you say, the CARES Act is coming through and the SBA loan program is already out there, is really you've got to dig in and understand this. Don't say it's too difficult. And if it's not you, then go to the experts or go to your go-to person that can help you in that process. You know, if it's your accountant, if it's your lawyer, if it's your coach, if whoever it is, to get that information, because they're putting tools in place, but you as a business owner have to get informed. And what you're sharing with us is be an informed business owner.
Yeah, Gary, I totally agree. And I think I want there to be some urgency for the audience, because what I'm worried about is that every business owner is going to go apply for the emergency SBA program. They're going to apply for the CARES Act programs. You want to get in line early so that you can get your funds earlier, because you don't want to wait months and months until your loan gets funded, because you may run out of cash. And right now, every business owner is in a war with cash. That is really the critical resource. And so I hope for the audience listening that they'll just take action now, go apply for the program. They are all, they've made it very easy to apply for it. The government's at least done that for us. So there's no reason to hesitate on getting that in there. And at the same time, I would be very careful about what payables you're paying as a business owner right now. Hold them as long as you can. You want to hoard cash. Cash is king. There's never been a time that aphorism has been more true. So really want to be hoarding cash. Also, it's not just so that you can pay expenses, Gary. I'm interested in business owners being able to take advantage of the opportunities that a recession brings. I mean, we called the book Rock the Recession because we didn't want to regurgitate, like the conventional wisdom on recessions, which is just that you need to cut overhead, you need to fire people, you need to just turtle up and wait it out and just try to survive. I think the real message here is that if you have a war chest, if you have cash, there are tremendous opportunities that you can pounce on in a recession.
Yeah, and I think that's one that I really wanted to kind of go to, but I think we have to give them the first steps that's there, is you have to realize there's opportunity that's going to come available now. And, I'm not saying that in a negative light, but you look at other companies that through the recession, and I can name a few in just my market area, that they grew tremendously during the last recession because they were in that position and stuff. And I think we ought to really kind of talk about it, because as entrepreneurs, there's ways to make that wealth during the economic downturn. And can you kind of share some of those strategies that they can be thinking about?
Yeah, so the first thing would be, I like to think about what skills do I want to pick up in the recession. So we have a downturn where obviously many of us are going to be shelter in place, staying at home, working virtually. So think through what skills can you pick up now such that you can rock the recovery when we get there. So for example, right now, video conferencing obviously is exploding. So what can you do to get even better with your video conferencing skills? How can you take your game to the next level? Can you invest in some better equipment so that you have a better microphone, a better camera, a place in your house, a Zen room where you can do your production? I mean, for me, over the past month, I've completely ripped apart my guest bedroom in my house and converted it to a studio. So I think part of it for me is just that we all think through that virtual is really where the world is going. So what can you do to take advantage of that? Even after we're through the coronavirus, Gary, I'm still thinking people aren't going to want to do events like we did before. I think it'll take the world a while, a year or two, to get back to going to Vegas for big conferences. I think that people are going to be more reticent to travel. So for the companies that can get in front of the technology, really figure out how to do good virtual meetings and work from home, I think that will be a huge competitive advantage across industries. So that would be the first one, is to pick up new skills that will help you coming out of this recession.
Yeah, and it's thinking about different business differently than what you're doing now. Your marketing aspect. You talked about cash is king. It's looking at, but also one that I know you've mentioned is what is maybe some of the talent that you're needing? There may be opportunities there because let's admit before this, unemployment was at the lowest rate it's been in a lot of years, and 50 some years, I think they said. So the one thing that can happen in this, there may be some opportunity to really pick up top talent.
Huge opportunities. I love that one. So unemployment, yeah, record lows, like 3%, and now we're projecting that unemployment may jump to 25%. So the thought here is that I want you all to make a list. I want the audience to make a list of the top talent that they would love to hire coming out of this recession. Maybe 10 people, maybe 20 people, and then I just want you to touch base with them. It could be a phone call. It could be a video call. It could be an email. Just letting them know what you're thinking, what you're up to, what your company is doing. Coming out of this recession, maybe they decide, hey, that guy Gary, he's a pretty good dude. He's stayed in touch with me. I like the sound of what he's up to. It sounds like he's really thinking about how they're going to rock the recovery and what they're going to do. Maybe I want to go work with them. Maybe they don't like how their last employer ended the relationship. There are going to be a lot of people that are not happy that their employer didn't stand behind them, wasn't able to stand behind them, didn't have enough balance sheet to support them through the recession. And they're going to be looking for a new home. They're not going to be as loyal to where they were working. So right now, though, is the time to start having those conversations. When we're back to normal, I think it'll be harder to pick up the phone and get people to come in. But if you can use the next couple months to establish relationships, I think that's critical. So not saying you have to call them and say, I want to hire you right now. Just start creating relationships with 10 to 20 people that you would love to hire. And then when the time comes, 1 to 2 of them should come to fruition.
Yeah, I think that becomes the key is really taking a look at what do you need. What it is, it's forward thinking. It's really looking about your business. And of course, I know there's a lot of people that's on the podcast wishing they would have been a little more forward thinking with saving a little more cash and putting themselves in that position so they're there. And that's going to be one of those, I'll be honest, that's where you've talked about earlier with we've got to look at the loans and opportunities that we have there. But I also think we've got to dig into our marketing aspect. Because one thing as a small business owner, marketing drives it. And right now you may be, well, I don't know if I can do any marketing. Well, sometimes it's just about reaching out those relationships. So the same thing you said about top talent, you can do the same thing with the relationship you have. And maybe is there some synergy if you're working together with another business and maybe there's some pieces that come together, not that you have to bring the businesses together, but by you coming together, it makes it, you're working with someone else to create an opportunity that allows you bigger opportunity that's out there. So that's what I want to share with the audience is there. And I'm curious what you think in that marketing aspect, Jonathan, of what they've got to really be thinking about to be able to put their company out there. So they're just not sitting there kind of like we did in the opening. You talked about you were in the fetal position. Nothing really happens then, does it?
Now, so Gary, I love the point. I love the thoughts on marketing. So what we found in the research, and we read every scientific research paper that had the word recession in it as part of doing our homework for the book. What we found is that marketing is a counterintuitive one. Almost everybody closes down marketing in a recession. They turtle up, they cut spending on marketing. And the counterintuitive thing is the companies that do better coming out of recessions are the ones that actually kept their marketing budget the same, or counterintuitively, they increased it. The reason is that your ROI goes way up on marketing dollars you spend in a recession because everybody's cutting back. So every dollar you spend in a recession for marketing goes further because there are fewer competing dollars. So any dollar you spend, whether it's on AdWords, whether it's on Amazon or Google marketing or Facebook, or even if it's print. Right now, print is starving for anybody to spend money with them. So you could own the newspaper, probably take out a full page ad for what it would have cost a quarter page or an eighth page a while ago. But TV, again, may have not been an opportunity that you could afford before the recession, but now you can. Everybody is pulling back, so this is a great time. And what it really requires, as much as the money, Gary, the investment, is really just the intestinal fortitude. You know, having the guts to be able to spend right now, to build your business, to put it out there, that is very difficult to spend into what feels like a black hole. And that's why we really want folks to have a written plan right now, so that when you are seeing on CNN that we're in a recession, or on Fox, whatever you prefer for news, when they're saying it over and over and over, putting recession in big bold letters across the top of the TV, it's hard to execute on spending on marketing. But if you have a plan now, and you make a deal with yourself that you're going to put it together in the cool, rational light of day, while there still is cool, rational light of day, before it gets even more emotional, then you can just calmly execute your plan. You don't have to be in the fetal position on the floor like I was, because I didn't have a plan in the Great Recession. But you can bet I definitely have a plan for this one, and I'm already able to execute against it.
Yeah, and that becomes the real key, I think, too, what you talk about in marketing, is make sure when you're putting your plan together that you've tested it. And if you have not on your marketing, then make sure you find the people that can help you, because then you're using your money in the best aspect versus just spending money. Because too many people spend marketing dollars like it's candy, and it's not. It's got to be very specific on what are you targeting, and make sure you're really working the market that's going to allow your best return on those assets that you're putting there. You talked a little bit about, and this, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to, there were two more quick ideas I wanted to shoehorn in before we move on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was in the fetal position for most of the Great Recession, but one of the things that did really work for me was that I did contact my bank and other banks and let them know, I owned gyms back in the Great Recession. I let them know that if any other gyms went out of business and the bank took that equipment, I would love the opportunity to buy it. And so I had the banks calling me, and this happened 4 times during the Great Recession. They would say, hey, there's a gym. It's in Florida or New York or Kansas. I really did go to all those places. And they just went out of business. Do you want to buy their equipment? They would send me an Excel spreadsheet. It would list out $35,000 worth of gym equipment. And I would call the bank and I would say, you know, if you'll take $1,000, then I would be happy to take this equipment, but $1,000 is all I have. And the guy would go, let me call you back in an hour. He would call back and go, if you'd overnight us a check for $1,000, you can and go pick up the equipment within a week. It's yours. So we did that 4 times. So the thought there, Gary, is that if you are a small business owner, let your bank know what you want. It may be gym equipment. It could be ovens. It could be, if you're a distillery, it could be those big stainless steel tanks that I know are so expensive. You go get a U-Haul, you pay a few dollars, you pick the stuff up, and for very, very cheap, you can bring all of that back and use it to really turbo boost your business. If you don't buy it, somebody else is going to. The trick, though, is that you need to be in your banker's ear reminding them what type of equipment you want. So when they get it, you're their first call, you're at top of mind, and you can get those great deals. So that was one quick thing I wanted to shoehorn in that I think is actionable for not as much money as most people think.
Great suggestion. Anything else that you want to share? Go ahead, because I think this is more practical. I've got, a couple other questions, but they can wait, because it's the real, it's the now.
Well, the last one I was thinking about, Gary, for small business owners and business leaders is that, now I think what's going to happen is that there are many baby boomers that own businesses, and we didn't see this recession coming. Well, at least I thought that there would be a recession this year, Gary, and I'm on camera, I'm on stage. I've said that many times over the past 6 months, so that's on record. But nobody could have predicted the Black Swan event that would have put us into it. Nobody could have predicted we would drop into it so quickly. As a result, I don't think baby boomers have had a chance to really to prepare for it. I think if we had had a slower entry into the recession, that maybe baby boomers would have sold their businesses beforehand. But what I think will happen now is that many are not going to want to continue operating their business the long, hard slog through recovery. And I do think this recovery will be a long, hard slog. I don't think that we're just going to bounce out of this one, unfortunately. What that means, though, is that if you're listening to us and you can have some conversations with some competitors that maybe would be great bolt-on acquisitions for your company, or maybe great partners to merge with you, or maybe you buy their client list or some of their assets, or maybe you just join forces to take over the business over time. I think there are going to be great opportunities for small business owners to do that right now. And I'm a big fan of that because it lets you to pounce, to turbocharge your business. I'm trying to use the charge language, to turbocharge yourself instead of having to do the long, hard slog that so many business books recommend. It's like you've got to hustle and grind and hustle and grind, and then maybe after 10 years you can build the business. Well, this recession can really give you great opportunities to do things much more quickly than I think before. So try to make some lemonade out of the lemons that we've all been handed.
Yeah. And I think that's the real key message that I want to tell the business owners. And if you're listening, you may be thinking the negative. And what I would do is tell you to change your mindset. Even if your business is not totally set up where it should be, there's some positives that can come out of this, but you've got to think in that positive mindset versus the negative. And I tell you, if you change that, I kind of call it the climber mindset or the stuck mindset. You can be stuck about everything that's going on, or you can decide, I'm going to climb out of this even better than what I was before. And that's what Jonathan's really telling us, with the information that he's sharing with us. You have that capability. And right now, there's really what comes is opportunity. And if you're either looking at the glass half full or half empty, and you have to realize which one do you want it to be for you. And you as an entrepreneur, if you're sitting there listening, please think about how can I make my business better through this versus I give up. And I think there's one other area that I really want to touch on with you, Jonathan, before we've got to go to the recharge round. Some great information, and I'll get you after this question to be able to share how they can get a copy of the book and your website, and we'll share all that information that's there. But the last question I have for you, I think you have a template available, and this may help some of those business owners how to address the growing concerns with their employees to reduce their anxiety. And things of that nature. I think I saw on your website there was an email template that you have available for them.
Yeah. So the trick here, and it's on recession.com. It's free. You can download it if you want to use it. Is I kind of drafted something so that you don't have to start with a blank Word document or a blank email. The real key here, this is another counterintuitive point. So what we learned from the academic research in the Great Recession is that employees respond better the more that they know. And so reflexively, a lot of business owners, a lot of business leaders, we hold back on information. We don't know what to say. We're not sure what to say. And so we create an information vacuum. We create a void of communication. And so that scares people. The better approach we've learned from research is the more that you can give your employees communication, even if it's to say, look, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we want you to know that we're thinking about it. We're reading everything we can, and we will get back to you every day or every other day with another communication, even if it's just to say, still don't know anything, just letting you know that's helpful for people. And if you may need to tell people, this is our plan for the recession. If we see our business continue to drop off, we're going to have to make layoffs, and this is what it'll look like. So that information doesn't scare people. It actually gives them comfort. That it takes away anxiety. I know that's counterintuitive, but people just want to know. They want leaders that are authentic, that are honest with them, and that share what they know. So transparency is really key here, and that's usually the opposite of what we do as leaders in these types of situations. So something for all of us to think about with your employees. But people aren't dumb. They know that everybody's challenged right now, and all they want is some grace and some honesty with knowing what's coming.
And I think that you hit a big topic there. I believe so much in. I think as leaders, we don't communicate enough. And I understand you can't say everything, but I tell people, lead from the heart. Tell them what you can. And we're putting scenarios together. I work with a nonprofit, and we're putting different scenarios together so we can be prepared. And that is the key, because the more you keep them informed, the less they have that anxiety, and it really helps them really understand. And if you want those people to stay with you, the people that are communicating, they're going to stay with you and they're going to be loyal to you. But if you're not communicating to them, then of course that then gives them the opportunity that they're going to be willing to listen to someone else that's out there. So really,
yeah, I think I completely agree, Gary. And I think it's just compassionate. Like, people need to make plans now so that they know if you're planning to cut everybody's salary by 25%, they need to know that now so that they can go have conversations with their spouse about what they're going to have to do to make that work. Or if they know that their pay is going to get cut 50%, or if they know that you're going to keep them on for 2 weeks, but then you're going to have to furlough them or lay them off. People should know that now, and then they can spend the next couple of weeks making plans. I'm not saying they're going to be super excited about it, but that's much better for them to be able to plan, because really it's about going through the phases of grief. Something we talk about in the book, there's the 7 phases of grief with the Kubler-Ross model. You first feel shock when you hear something like this. And then you go through disbelief, you go through anger, you start bargaining. Ultimately, you get to acceptance. You want to give people some time to work their way through those phases of grief. If you just tell them today that they're no longer working with you and they had no heads up about that, it's very hard for them to work through that. And then they can't make good decisions because all of a sudden they're emotional. They're scared, they're worried, and they don't have the time to process. So again, that's why I harp on it, is that it's more letting them work through the phases of grief if there is going to be bad news.
Yes. Great information, Jonathan. Man, what such a practical time. I truly appreciate you sharing that. But before I let you go, I want to get to the recharge round. But before we go there, share with them, you've given them website once, but also tell them the book again and how they can get copies of it.
Sure. The book is Rock the Recession, and it is on Amazon, and the website is recession.com. If they want to go to recession.com, that's got the free assessment that we talked about. And then if you and I want to get together after the recording, I can give you a coupon code to share with the audience in the show notes if they want to buy the workbook that we have available on the website, to give them the template to get them started with their plan to do all the things I talked about, like increasing their line of credit, like making a plan for what cuts they would make if it comes to that. Or it takes them through all those ideas for how they can pounce. So if they like the thoughts on how do I get more assets for cheap, how do I go about getting top talent or acquiring other businesses, we lay all of those out in the workbook.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely get together after this. So we'll have that coupon code, all that information. Again, if you were exercising and you're like, gosh, I'd like to write that down. Number one, it's pretty easy to remember that website, recession.com. That's a pretty good one, Jonathan. You pulled a heck of a one off there. But the book or any other information, know that you can go to our show notes at chargepodcast.com, and all that information will be there. That coupon code, they'll be there. So if you're interested in that, please know that that's available to you, and we'll have that in there. Well, Jonathan, some great information. Let's go into the recharge round, because I'm kind of curious, because you're a very active person, and I love the information you share with us. But I'm curious, how do you set your mindset? How does that affect your daily living?
For me, a lot of it is digging deep and finding another gear. So right now, it's just understanding my kids are 7 and 9 years old, and they need me to dig deep and to be stable, to be a rock for them. Right now, there's a lot of instability in their lives. Obviously, they're not in school. It's taken away a lot of their schedule. So that's a lot of what drives me, is just using them as my reason to get up, to be motivated, to put on my button down every day and make sure that I'm stable. So that's my big driver.
Okay, great. I know you're a very energetic guy, because I can tell that. Plus, we're doing this via Zoom, so we're seeing each other and kind of sharing each other's energy and bringing that forward. But I'm going to share the time of, when your energy is a little bit low. What do you do to fill up the gas tank so you've got enough energy to get through the day, the week?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't try to fight the energy, Gary. So, on the days where I'm feeling low, I try not to do the podcasts, and I try to just focus on thought work, like if I need to read something or if I'm writing something I'm working on my next book now. So I try to do those tasks when I'm low energy. And I also try to stack my days. So today is a day where I'm on interviews all day. So I woke up this morning, I got ready to be on camera, got ready to have energy, and just knew what that was. And then there are other days where I won't do any interviews, so that day I can just be in my pajamas and I can just focus on things where I can be more introspective. So that's how I approach it. It's not trying to fight the energy if it's not there.
Okay, great. How about the number one connection or maybe relationship that's made the biggest impact on your life?
Yeah, outside of spouse and kids, it's really the co-author that I have on Rock the Recession. So Paul Belair, my co-author, we met 10 years ago and have been friends since. But even outside of writing the book together, we're just good friends. We play tennis together. Or we did before when the virus still let you do things like play tennis. But in any case, I think that relationship, because he challenges me intellectually. He is an economic geek. He is forever reading economic journals and bringing insights into our Rock the Recession world and what we're thinking. So I thrive on that.
Excellent. How about what advice has influenced you the most in your life?
Yeah, I think on the advice front, it's really something my dad said about character, which is that character is really about what you do when nobody's looking or when nobody can see. And so I've always tried to keep that top of mind. In fact, I have it posted in my office. He wrote it to me on a note and I've kept it. And so again, I'm always just trying to think of how I can keep that completely in focus.
How about your favorite book and why do you love it?
So right now, my favorite is Black Swan, and it's by Nassim Taleb. It's a book that came out back in like 2007, 2008, prescient right in front of the Great Recession, but just talking through these Black Swan events. So often these unpredictable things, whether it's us dropping into a war, whether it's a crazy virus like this one, or whatever it might be, but just how can we anticipate them? How can we react to them? And I think you would love it because a lot of it is that to react to a Black Swan event, we all get to pick our reaction. We can't pick whether or not it happens, but how we react to it is definitely within our control. So I don't know if you've read it, but if you haven't, I think it'd be right down the fairway for you, Gary.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to check that one out. I have not read that yet, but it sounds very interesting. My last question for you is, what legacy do you want to leave the world?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we take this Rock the Recession stuff personally. So we're actually working, we have a life plan. So we've worked through this question, just like we have a recession plan for our business and for our personal lives. But in our personal life plan, the legacy that we want to leave is to do good for abused, impoverished, and neglected kids. My wife is a pediatric ICU doctor. She's on the front lines right now with the coronavirus. We hope, we've got a 501c3, and we hope that we're going to be able to be really generous with continuing to fund that and hopefully make a difference for abused, impoverished, and neglected kids.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That is quite the legacy. You've left a legacy with us because this is such practical information. I wish we weren't in this time. I think everybody would say that. But the thing is you shared some information that is so practical to our business owners. And I just think it's so relevant that how are you looking at the picture? And that is really the key is what are you going to do? Are you going to choose negative or are you going to choose positive? And as business owners, there's opportunity that comes with challenges. And that's what I want my business owners that's listening to think is this is the time to charge. You have a time to charge. You've got to get ready and prepared. Now it's about putting it in place and acting on it. And so you gave some great suggestions there. So Jonathan, again, if you would share your website and also how they can get your book.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. It's recession.com, and all of my contact information is available there. If they want to do the free assessment, that's at recession.com/ready. And then if you want a copy of the book, those are on Amazon. The book is called Rock the Recession. And thank you all for the support, and just hope that the entire audience rocks on.
And remember, you have that capability. All that'll be in show notes. And remember, he's going to give a special discount if you want a workbook. I'll have that in show notes, how you access that information with Jonathan. And remember, come back and share this. Share this with other business owners you know, because this could be what they need to hear to be able to allow them to get out of this pity myself. Instead, how can I rock this recession? How can I make it better? And I truly appreciate Jonathan's time of coming on today. Thanks, Jonathan.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Rock on.
Chargers, I hope this really helps you because I know it was some practical information today. Now, remember, like I said before, like and share this. Let other people know about it because this is information that is so practical right now. That's why I moved it up in the podcast list. And when Jonathan told me he was available to do this, I got him on the podcast. So I hope it makes a difference for your business. If you need anything, reach out to us. Check out his website. Check out the materials. But Chargers, remember, you're in control of your response right now. Really make your circle of influence grow versus your concern. Your concern about what's going on, I understand. But now it's about what you influence will make the difference. And if you make that influence grow, it's going to get larger and you're going to come out of this really as a rock star. So thanks for joining me, Chargers. Make it a great day. We'll see you back here next week.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.